It was just after 11:30 on a cold October night when a 24-year-old security guard named Daniel began his shift at a small cemetery outside a rural town. The cemetery wasn't particularly old. Some of the graves dated back more than 100 years, but most were from the 20th century. During the day, it was quiet and peaceful. At night, however, the cemetery was completely different. Daniel had taken the job because it was easy. His responsibilities were simple. Drive around the property every hour. Check the gates. Make sure nobody was vandalizing graves or trespassing. Then return to the small security booth near the entrance. The first few nights were completely uneventful. But on his fifth night, something strange happened. At approximately 1:17 a.m., Daniel heard footsteps. At first, he ignored them. He assumed an animal was moving through the grass. Then he heard them again. The footsteps were coming from the cemetery. Daniel looked through the window of his booth. Nothing. He grabbed his flashlight and walked outside. The cold air immediately hit his face. He shined the flashlight between the rows of gravestones. Nothing. Then he heard the footsteps again. This time they sounded closer. Daniel walked toward the sound. As he reached the center of the cemetery, his flashlight illuminated something lying beside a grave, a small child's toy. It was an old stuffed rabbit. Daniel thought someone must have left it there. He picked it up and placed it beside the gravestone. Then he noticed something. The gravestone belonged to a girl who had died when she was 6 years old. Her name was Emily. Daniel later said that he didn't think much of it. He turned around and began walking back toward the security booth. That's when he heard a child's voice, very quietly, almost like a whisper. "Don't leave me." Daniel froze. He turned around. The cemetery was completely silent. He raised his flashlight. Nothing. Then he heard it again. "Don't leave me." This time, the voice sounded as though it was coming from directly behind him. Daniel spun around. Nothing. He immediately ran back to the security booth. Once inside, he locked the door. For the next 20 minutes, he sat there trying to convince himself that he'd imagined it. Then something tapped on the window. Tap. Daniel looked up. Nothing. Another tap. Tap. He slowly approached the glass. And that's when he saw the reflection. A little girl was standing behind him. Daniel screamed and turned around. There was nobody there. But when he looked back at the window, the reflection was still there. A little girl, pale face, dark hair, white dress, standing directly behind him. Daniel didn't turn around this time. He stared at the reflection. Then the girl slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the cemetery, specifically toward the grave where Daniel had found the stuffed rabbit. The reflection disappeared. Daniel immediately called his supervisor. His supervisor told him to stay inside until morning. Daniel did exactly that. The next day, he told the cemetery caretaker what happened. The caretaker's reaction surprised him. He didn't laugh. He didn't say Daniel had imagined it. Instead, he became very quiet. Then he asked Daniel one question. "Did you touch anything near Emily's grave?" Daniel said yes. "The stuffed rabbit." The caretaker sighed. He explained that Emily had died decades earlier. According to her family, she had owned a stuffed rabbit that she carried everywhere. The toy had been buried with her. But over the years, people visiting the cemetery occasionally found a similar-looking rabbit lying outside her grave. Nobody knew where it came from, and every time someone removed it, it eventually appeared again. Daniel asked where it was now. The caretaker looked toward the cemetery. Then he said, "It was there yesterday morning." Daniel immediately knew what he meant. The rabbit had returned. That was enough for Daniel. He quit his job that afternoon. But the story doesn't end there. Several months later, another security guard was hired. According to the caretaker, the new guard lasted only 3 nights. On his final night, he reported hearing footsteps moving around the cemetery. He also claimed he saw the reflection of a little girl in the security booth window. And when investigators checked the security cameras, there was something strange. At approximately 1:17 a.m., the camera covering the central cemetery showed a small figure walking between the graves. The figure stopped beside Emily's grave. Then it disappeared. The footage was reportedly never publicly released. But according to the caretaker, the security company kept a copy, and every new guard was warned about one thing. If you ever hear a child asking you not to leave, don't answer. Our second story takes place in an old cemetery surrounded by thick woods. The cemetery had been abandoned for years. The road leading to it was barely maintained. There were no streetlights, no nearby houses, and almost no visitors. For local teenagers, however, that made it the perfect place to explore. One summer night, four friends decided to visit. Their names were Ryan, Jake, Melissa, and Tyler. They arrived shortly after midnight. They parked their car beside the cemetery entrance and climbed over the old iron gate. At first, everything seemed normal. They laughed. They took pictures. They joked about ghosts. Then they noticed something strange. There was a man standing between the graves. He was approximately 50 feet away. Tall, extremely thin, wearing a long dark coat. His back was facing them. Ryan called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The man didn't respond. Jake laughed. He thought it was someone trying to scare them. He walked closer. The others followed. When they were approximately 20 feet away, Ryan noticed something. The man's feet weren't moving. He was standing completely still. Jake called out again, "Sir." The man slowly turned around. The four friends later described what happened next in almost identical words. They said the man's face looked wrong. Not deformed, not bloody, just empty. His skin looked unusually pale. His eyes were completely black, and his mouth was slightly open. Nobody spoke. The man stared directly at them. Then he smiled. Melissa screamed. The four friends turned and ran. They reached the gate and climbed over it. Then they ran toward their car. Ryan was the first to reach the driver's door. He unlocked it. Everyone jumped inside. But before Ryan could start the engine, Tyler suddenly shouted, "Wait!" He was looking toward the cemetery. The man was standing beside the gate. Only now, he wasn't inside the cemetery. He was standing on the road. The friends froze. The man didn't move. He simply stared at them. Ryan started the car. They drove away as fast as possible. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then Melissa looked at her phone. She had been recording videos during their visit. She opened a camera roll. There were dozens of pictures. Most were blurry. Some showed graves. Others showed trees. Then she found one picture that made everyone go silent. It showed the four friends standing together inside the cemetery. But behind them, between two gravestones, stood the man. The photograph had been taken before they ever noticed him. That alone was disturbing. But then Melissa noticed something else. In the picture, the man wasn't looking at them. He was looking directly at the camera, and he was smiling. They deleted the photograph, or at least they thought they did. The next morning, Melissa discovered the image was back on her phone. She deleted it again. It returned again. This continued for several days. Then something even stranger happened. Melissa began receiving photographs from an unknown number. No text, no explanation, just pictures. The first showed her house, taken from across the street. The second showed her bedroom window, taken at night. The third showed her sleeping. Melissa panicked. She went to the police. They investigated the phone number. It wasn't registered to anyone. The photographs were eventually traced to a device that had never been connected to a cellular network. That should have been impossible. But the strangest photograph arrived 3 nights later. It showed Melissa standing beside her bedroom window. She was asleep, and behind her, in the reflection of the glass, stood the same man from the cemetery. Melissa moved out of the house shortly afterward. Ryan refused to talk about the incident. Jake claimed the whole thing was a prank. Tyler stopped visiting cemeteries entirely. But there was one final detail. Years later, Melissa found the original photograph from that night, saved inside an old cloud backup. She opened it and noticed something she hadn't seen before. There were only 4 friends in the picture: Ryan, Jake, Melissa, Tyler, and the man. But according to the photograph's metadata, the picture had been taken 3 hours before they arrived at the cemetery. Our final story is perhaps the strangest of the 3. It involved a young woman named Sarah who visited a cemetery to locate her grandmother's grave. Sarah lived several hours away. She rarely visited the cemetery, but one winter afternoon, she decided to go alone. It was around 4:30 p.m. when she arrived. The sun was already beginning to disappear behind the trees. Sarah walked through the cemetery searching for the family plot. After about 15 minutes, she found it. Her grandmother's grave was located near the back of the property. Sarah knelt beside the gravestone. She placed flowers on the ground. Then she sat there for several minutes. While she was looking at the gravestone, she noticed another grave nearby. It was unusual. There was no name, no date, no photograph, just a simple stone. Sarah became curious. She stood up and walked closer. The gravestone was covered in moss, but beneath the moss, she could barely make out a single word. Wait. Sarah thought it was strange. She took a photograph. Then she returned to her grandmother's grave. A few minutes later, she heard something, a knocking sound. Knock. She looked around. Nothing. Then again, knock. This time, it sounded like it was coming from beneath the ground. Sarah immediately stood up. She looked toward the unnamed grave. Another knock. Knock. Then a third. Knock. Sarah ran. She didn't stop until she reached her car. She drove home and tried to forget about it. But later that night, she looked through the pictures she had taken. When she reached the photograph of the unnamed grave, she noticed something. A figure was standing beside it. A woman. Sarah zoomed in. The woman appeared to be wearing an old-fashioned white dress. Her face was turned away from the camera. Sarah was certain nobody had been standing there when she took the picture. She showed the photograph to her mother. Her mother became visibly uncomfortable. She asked Sarah where the grave was located. Sarah told her. Her mother went silent. Then she said something that Sarah couldn't understand. That grave shouldn't be there. Sarah asked what she meant. Her mother explained that she remembered hearing about an old family story. Decades earlier, a woman had supposedly disappeared from the area. Her body was never found. Some people believe she had been buried secretly somewhere in the cemetery, but nobody knew where. Sarah decided to return. The following morning, when she arrived, she immediately noticed something different. The unnamed grave was gone. Completely gone. There was no stone, no hole, no disturbed soil, nothing. Sarah thought perhaps she had confused the location. She checked her photographs. The picture clearly showed the grave. She even showed the caretaker. He stared at the photograph for several seconds. Then he asked, "When did you take this?" Sarah told him. The caretaker shook his head. He said there had never been a grave in that location. Sarah insisted. She showed him the picture. The caretaker became pale. He then told her something that made her stomach drop. He had seen that same woman before, not in person, in photographs. Over the years, several visitors had reported taking photographs in the cemetery and later discovering the image of a woman standing near the back section. Different people, different cameras, different years, but always the same woman. The caretaker believed the woman might have been someone buried there long ago, someone whose grave had been removed or forgotten. Sarah asked him about the knocking. He didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, "Some people say she wasn't buried alone." Sarah asked what that meant. The caretaker refused to explain. Instead, he told her never to visit the cemetery after sunset. Sarah followed his advice. She never returned. But approximately 2 years later, something happened that convinced her the cemetery incident wasn't imagination. Sarah was cleaning an old external hard drive when she discovered the original photograph. She opened it. The same unnamed grave appeared. The same woman stood beside it. But this time, Sarah noticed something she had never seen before. The woman's face was visible. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking down, toward the ground. Sarah zoomed in, and beneath the woman's feet was another gravestone, almost completely hidden beneath the grass. Sarah increased the brightness of the photograph. There was a name carved into the stone. It was her grandmother's name. Sarah immediately called her mother. Her mother asked her to send the photograph. Sarah did. A few minutes later, her mother called back. She was crying. She told Sarah something she had never told her before. When Sarah's grandmother was young, she had a sister who disappeared. The family had always been told that the girl had run away, but there had been rumors that she died. And according to an old family photograph, the missing girl's name was carved on a grave somewhere in that cemetery. Sarah searched through old family records. The girl's name matched the name in the photograph. Nobody knows exactly what happened to her. Nobody knows why her grave disappeared. And nobody knows why Sarah's grandmother's name appeared on the hidden gravestone. But there is one final detail. Sarah's mother still has the original family photograph. It shows Sarah's grandmother as a young woman standing beside her missing sister. And in the background, behind them, is the same unnamed grave. The photograph was taken 37 years before Sarah was born.